It's Tuesday, August 19th, and Hurricane Erin has grown in size greatly. It is almost 3 times the size it was when it reached that Category 5 status, and roughly this will be expected to expand to about 500 miles in diameter. To put it into perspective, that's enough distance to reach all the way from New York to South Carolina. So, although we have seen this grown in size by a really large amount, it has actually started to weaken quite a bit. It has gone down from a category 4 to only a category 3, although that is still a major hurricane, and it's sitting around a 120 mile an hour sustained winds currently, and it has reached the point where it's not really expected to re-strengthen past that. But currently in the short term, it is actually impacting parts of the Bahamas with some tropical storm force impacts. So lots of rain, some surge, and definitely some really big waves also with that tropical storm threat. Wind gust, and then also we'll see what this will mean for our people up in North Carolina. So here is our cone of uncertainty from the National Hurricane Center, and we can see that this is expected to be a major hurricane all the way up until Thursday. And then also we can see that this cone is pretty much the same it was the past couple of days. We're pretty certain at this point that this is going to be the track through there, but because our storm is expected to be around 500 miles in diameter by this point, we are expecting to see some tropical storm impacts in the Outer Banks. That is why it currently has that tropical storm warning. So although the storm could be all the way out here, the outer bands would still be pretty hitting the Outer Banks somewhat hard. And one of those things is going to be a surge up to 2 to 4 feet, specifically in the Hatteras area of the Outer Banks. And then, of course, also those tropical storm wind speeds above 39 miles an hour. Definitely some tropical storm wind gusts, possibly in that 50 mile an hour region. And these winds would be expected to arrive around Wednesday night. And the last thing we're going to talk about regarding Erin is going to be the extremely high surf, possibly a historic swell coming to pretty much anywhere on the Atlantic coast, all the way up until Cape Cod. We could see some 15-foot waves and also some life-threatening rip currents. So probably best to stay out of the water if you're going to the beach. But another thing to note is that hurricane season is reaching peak, and that is why we are seeing a lot of areas interest pushing off of Africa. One specifically is going to be the next area to watch. This little orange splotch out here has a 60% chance of cyclone formation. Now, the only good news about it currently is that it is going to track over the same areas Erin tracked over, which the environment out there, specifically the water temperatures, have been pretty much spent. So definitely a lot less conducive environment to work with there than this tropical wave behind it. Could even potentially see the same thing graded by this system. So there are some model runs which do look somewhat concerning right now, but because this is so far out, those really don't mean anything because they definitely will change in that time. So it's not really something to worry about right now. But just a reminder that it is hurricane season, and we still have to stay weather aware of what's happening out here in the main development region, in the Atlantic, and then of course in the near term with Erin. And today there is actually a pretty small risk of seeing some severe weather, and this is expected to be one of the calmest days we have seen in quite some time. This risk spans all the way from the Southern Plains, Mississippi, and Ohio River valleys up until pretty much northwestern Ohio. And currently the only thing fueling this threat is the conditional threat of some 60 mile an hour damaging winds, which overspreads our entire marginal risk area. There is neither a tornado or hail threat outlined by the SPC at this point, although I do think we could see some small hail in that 1 to 1.5 inch in diameter range pretty much anywhere in this risk area. And I also do think there could be a small chance of a couple of spin-up tornadoes up here in the Ohio portion today. And then our risk of flash flooding today is only a marginal risk, so we're really not expecting to see anywhere above 1 to 2 inches of widespread rainfall. Today, this main area covers pretty much our marginal risk area of severe weather. We have a couple of hot spots, one being out here in the lower Appalachians and also in the Mid-Atlantic and the desert Southwest. And then the heat dome over in the eastern Southern Plains and Mississippi River Valley is still expected to keep kicking, bringing some mid-100s temps to that region. And then here's what the radar could look like in our marginal risk area today. We're going to see some storm initiation likely around the mid-afternoon, and I think the main area to watch is going to be some redevelopment around a mesoscale convective vortex, specifically in that Kansas and Oklahoma region. This environment would be pretty favorable for seeing some small hail, but mostly some damaging winds in that 60 to 70 mile an hour range. Then pretty much anywhere else along a cold front in an area of some troughing could see the conditional threat for some severe weather. I do think there would be a higher chance of seeing some in that Ohio risk area because this will be closer to a low pressure system and a bit of a stationary front cold front complex, which will provide some better ingredients for general severe weather and even possibly a spin up tornado. And then these storms would last pretty much all the way until the evening hours, then die off right after that low level jet stops when night comes. And then synoptically, here are 500 millibar winds. There is really not going to be a lot going on in our main risk area at all, except in pretty much the Ohio and Indiana portion. That's going to be the only place experiencing a couple of short waves, but everywhere else it's just going to be some storms initiated along that cold front with the help of a couple of high pressure systems bringing some organizing shear, but it's really not going to be a lot. And that lack of organizing shear is going to be reflected in that environment in our southern plains risk area, specifically with that area, which I do think could see some redevelopment around a remnant mesoscale convective vortex. And that is why these storms really aren't expected to be super formidable or last a very long time, despite the other favorable things like a very moist environment and a very unstable environment. This forecast sounding actually has it around a 75 dew point and 5,600 Cape. So very favorable for severe weather. Then also the 3 Cape is going to be quite high out here too, around 162, which would also just be favorable for that severe weather threat in general. I do think our hail threat could potentially be there, although it would be for some 1 to 1.5 inch hail, because we do have quite a bit of Cape up here near our freezing level, and our mid-level lapse rates are going to be 8.4 Celsius decreasing per kilometer, but it's going to be hindered greatly by that linear messy storm mode and also that lack of organizing shear. The last things I'm going to look at are a extremely high downdraft Cape and then also a high precipitable water coupled with quite a bit of dry air loft. So definitely some damaging winds in that 60 to 70 mile an hour region. And the reason I don't think we're going to see pretty much any tornadoes out here in the southern plains is because our cloud bases are going to be too high and our shear really isn't going to be present at all. But on the complete other side of that spectrum, here is the weather sounding from the northwestern Ohio risk area. And I do think we could potentially see a couple of weak spin up tornadoes in this area today. The main thing is going to be some pretty favorable shear, actually 15 knots and 132 surface helicity. So that would definitely be in play. Then our organizing shear is also going to be quite good, around 35 knots. Then our cloud base would be pretty solid as well. Then for everything else, it's just general stuff, which would be somewhat conducive for some severe weather. We have a 70 dew point. Our environment isn't really looking that unstable at all. So that would be the main hindrance. And also we have a pretty stable ground layer, but because we do have a couple of short waves pushing through the region, then of course that cold front and stationary boundary complex coupled with that low pressure system, I definitely do think we'll see some severe weather out here and with the potential of a weak spin up tornado. And then this is just a weather sounding for pretty much in general anywhere along that cold front and our marginal risk area that isn't those two areas we just talked about. And it's just going to be a moist environment and a somewhat unstable environment. So just generally favorable for severe weather today.